So, you want to own a public toilet. How do you make money from something everyone needs, nobody wants to pay for, and no government is required to provide? Why did a British seaside town start charging a full pound for something that costs 20 pence everywhere else? Why did a city in California get quoted $1.7 million for a single bathroom the size of a walk-in closet? And why, on the other side of the world, does a city of 2 million people hand out 15 million free visits a year to the exact same thing? Keep that second number in your head. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how a business with no paying customers turns a profit. Start with what you'd assume. You'd assume the expensive part is the toilet itself. It isn't. A basic ceramic bowl costs somewhere between $50 and $170. Even a fully engineered, vandal-resistant, single-occupancy public restroom, the kind cities buy off a catalog, runs about $96,000 a unit. That's the price of the Portland Loo, a stainless steel design out of Oregon that's now been bought by more than 20 other cities. $96,000 sounds steep for a toilet, but it's a rounding error in city budgets. So that's not where the real cost lives either. Maybe it's government bureaucracy then. In 2022, San Francisco proposed a single public restroom for its Noe Valley neighborhood and priced it at $1.7 million. Not a building. One toilet, about 150 square feet. The number made international news. A state assemblyman called it proof of a dysfunctional bureaucracy. And the city eventually accepted a donated prefabricated unit instead, bringing the real cost down to roughly $200,000, almost all of it labor and permitting. So the price of a public toilet, it turns out, isn't fixed by materials at all. It's fixed by how many committees have to approve the roofline. But construction is a one-time cost. Committees eventually sign off, cranes eventually show up, and the thing gets built. The real problem starts the day after it opens, because now somebody has to keep it running forever, with no ticket booth and no guaranteed customer. In the English Lake District, one small attended public toilet block costs close to £90,000 a year just to operate. Wages, a van, cleaning chemicals, water, electricity, and constant repairs to fixtures that get abused on a weekly basis. £90,000 a year for one building with a door that anyone can walk through for free. Multiply that arithmetic across a country and you get the real story. Since the year 2000, the number of public toilets in the United Kingdom has fallen by roughly 40%. In London alone, in a single recent year, 97 council toilets closed while only 32 opened. A net loss of 65 in 12 months. The average public toilet in Britain is now open just over 10 hours a day. There's even a term for what happens to people when this supply disappears. The loo leash. The informal rule that dictates how far you're willing to travel from home based on whether you'll be able to find a bathroom when you get there. About 1 in 5 people in the UK say it restricts their movement. So here's the actual shape of the problem. Building one is expensive but survivable. Running one is a permanent, unglamorous drain with no revenue attached to it. And because no law in most countries actually requires a city to provide one, it is always the first thing cut when a budget tightens. Which brings us to the real question. If nobody wants to pay to build it, and nobody wants to pay to run it, how does a public toilet ever survive? The answer is that it almost never survives on its own. A public toilet, as a standalone business, doesn't work. It only works when it's smuggled inside somebody else's business model. One that was never really about toilets at all. Look at Paris. 15 million people use a public toilet there every year for free, and the network turns a profit for the company that runs it. The Sanisette, the self-cleaning cabin you'll find on Parisian street corners, was invented by the outdoor advertising company Decode and installed across the city starting in 1981. It charged a coin at first, then went completely free in 2006. Today, Paris has 435 of these units, and Decode operates more than 2,500 of them across 28 countries, serving over 31 million people a year in cities from Berlin to San Francisco. Here's the mechanism. Decode is not, at its core, a toilet company. It's the largest outdoor advertising company on Earth, worth close to €4 billion a year in revenue, built on billboards, bus shelters, and bike share kiosks. Cities handed exclusive rights to place advertising panels on public land. In exchange, Capital Decode builds, cleans, and staffs the toilets, at no direct cost to the taxpayer. And the toilet becomes a loss leader buried inside a much larger advertising contract. Nobody in Paris pays for the bathroom. Everybody in Paris is, indirectly, paying for it every time they glance at a bus shelter. Now go to India, where a completely different subsidy holds the same kind of network together. In 1970, a man named Bindeshwar Pathak, born into a Brahmin family in rural Bihar, was asked to join a committee planning celebrations for the 100th anniversary of Gandhi's birth. Gandhi had spent decades trying to end manual scavenging, the practice of the lowest castes in India being forced to clear human waste by hand. Pathak, a man from the top of that caste system, chose to build his life's work around the bottom of it. He designed a cheap, two-pit, pour-flush toilet that needed no one to empty it by hand, and then built an organization called Sulabh International to install it everywhere. Sulabh now runs around 9,000 pay-and-use toilet complexes across India, serving something like 10 to 15 million users a day at a price of 1 to 2 rupees, a couple of cents, per visit. That generates roughly 550 million rupees a year. The trick isn't the price, it's what Sulabh does with the money. High-traffic complexes at train stations and markets bring in far more cash than they need, and that surplus is used to keep tiny, unprofitable complexes in poor neighborhoods open. One toilet subsidizes another, the same way one advertising panel in Paris subsidizes a bathroom 2 streets away. A man from the highest rung of a caste system built his fortune and his legacy on the labor of the lowest rung. That's the origin. The outcome is a sanitation network larger than most national governments run. There's a third version of this story, and it's a warning rather than a model, because it shows what happens when the subsidy disappears entirely. In 1970, 4 teenagers in Dayton, Ohio, founded something called the Committee to End Pay Toilets in America. Their argument was simple and, honestly, fair. Men could use a free urinal, but women were forced to feed a coin slot just to enter a stall. In 1974, there were an estimated 50,000 coin-operated pay toilets across the United States. The teenagers' campaign worked. Chicago banned pay toilets in 1973. By the mid-1970s, roughly a dozen states had followed. The group declared victory and disbanded in 1976. Here's the twist nobody in Dayton saw coming. Businesses didn't respond by making their toilets free. They responded by removing them. Without a coin slot to cover the cost of upkeep, thousands of restroom operators simply padlocked the door instead. Decades later, America has one of the lowest rates of public restroom availability of any wealthy country in the world, a direct, if accidental, legacy of a successful teenage protest movement. The lesson sits right next to the Paris and India stories. Remove the funding mechanism, however unfair it looks, and you don't get a fairer toilet. You get no toilet at all. So here's the first real weakness in this business. A bank can sell you a loan. A casino can sell you a drink while you gamble. A public toilet can sell you nothing while you're inside it. There's no upsell, no membership tier, no repeat transaction. The entire economic value of a public toilet is created before or after the visit, never during it. And here's the second weakness. You can't franchise scarcity the way an airport can. An airport owns the only door out of a sealed building and can charge everyone who passes through it. A public toilet owns no monopoly at all because the person using it can, in theory, just hold it, walk somewhere else, or use a cafe's bathroom for free. Its entire value depends on being cheaper or more available than the alternative. And the moment a nearby coffee shop unlocks its door, the toilet loses its only leverage. Which is exactly why every model that actually works routes around both weaknesses by attaching the toilet to something that does have leverage. Advertising space has leverage because a billboard sells attention, which is genuinely scarce. A national dignity campaign has leverage because cross-subsidy from a busy train station toilet to a quiet village, one doesn't depend on the village toilet turning a profit at all. And in America, gas stations and fast food chains figured out the same trick decades ago without anyone writing it down. The bathroom is free because the real business is the gallon of gas and the extra large drink you buy on your way to it. In every surviving model, The toilet itself never pays. Something standing next to it does. That's really the whole thesis in one sentence. A public toilet is a cost center that only survives by disappearing inside somebody else's profit center, whether that profit center sells advertising, sells fuel, or simply sells a country's claim to basic dignity. Zoom out, and the scale of the problem this solves is much bigger than any single city budget. The United Nations still estimates that over 4 billion people worldwide lack access to safely managed sanitation. Every November 19th, World Toilet Day exists specifically to keep that number in front of policymakers, because it's the kind of infrastructure gap that never generates headlines the way a bridge collapse does. As global urban populations keep growing, and as councils from London to Los Angeles keep discovering they can't run a bathroom on general tax revenue alone, expect the Capital Decode model and the Sulab model to keep spreading, because they're the only two that have actually proven durable at scale over multiple decades. Pure government funding, the Noe Valley model, keeps losing to budget cuts. Pure user fees, the coin slot model, keeps losing to public backlash. The only version that survives long-term is the one nobody notices. A bathroom quietly bolted onto somebody else's business, doing the one thing a government alone has never managed to do consistently, which is simply stay open. So if you still want to own a public toilet, here's the honest answer to how much money you'll make doing it. On its own, none. You will lose money on every single visit, every single year, for as long as the door stays unlocked. The only way to profit from a public toilet is to stop thinking of it as the business and start thinking of it as the price of admission to a much bigger one standing right behind it.